Warning: the review you're about to see is on a game that focuses heavily on first experiences. While it won't be covered in its entirety, it's deeply recommended that you stop and check the game out for yourself once the spoiler tag pops up partway through the video. Thank you.
Welcome to J Reviews. You know, usually on this show you'll see me review NES games, or Super Nintendo games, or occasionally the N64 game. This time I'm going to look over a game that actually came out this year. That's right, this is going to be a modern J Reviews. Now this is usually the part where I'd hold the game up for you to see, and while I did originally plan on getting it for the PS4, I ended up buying it during a Steam sale instead. But enough introduction, let's get right into this review. Here's Little Nightmares. The game opens with dark and obscured imagery of what seems to be a silhouette of a person. But just as it turns around to look at us, the vision ends, and our character awakens from a nightmare. I want you to take in this beginning area just as I did the first time. We seem to be playing as a young girl in a raincoat, who had previously been sleeping on a large suitcase in what looks like a back alley. Right away, the visuals and sounds we hear from this very first screen is incredibly impressive. Look at the lighting effects and the detail in the surrounding area, and just listen to the sound of the puddles splashing. This is all part of what makes this game so immersive, and we're just getting started. I happen to be using a PS4 controller, which I think works better for the platforming segments. The left control stick is used for walking around, while your buttons are used for jumping, ducking, grabbing onto things, and using your lighter to light up dark areas. The grab button is very multi-purpose, used both for hanging onto ledges, pushing or pulling objects, and picking up items, which can be thrown with the jump button. The right control stick is used to survey the area. You are however limited to a single perspective, which is comparable to looking inside of a dollhouse. This isn't a bad thing however, and I feel it lends itself to the way the game works. At first glance, it almost seems like a 2D platformer, but there is plenty of 3D exploring to do in most areas of the game, with the camera doing a great job of shifting to accommodate that. Not far from the starting area, you'll run into your first lantern. Initially it seems to be a save point, but the lanterns and candles you run into are actually there as a bonus challenge, giving you another motive to play through again and light any that you may have missed. Another bonus are these little statues which you must break to collect. The first time I came upon this hatch, which leads out to the starting point, I really begin to appreciate the detail put into how you interact with your environment. It's right after this where you get a real appreciation to the world you're playing in. As you climb these steps, enormous chains come into view which seem to be holding the structure of the building together. But weren't we just in an alleyway before? I love this because it gives off this feeling that you're this tiny little thing wandering around in an uncomfortable and intimidating dreamlike world. The scope of it and the visuals are just fantastic. This theme of being tiny and helpless in a disturbingly surreal environment continues as you come across giant hanging furniture, a ravaged refrigerator, and, yeah. There's so much to take in as you're slowly progressing through that you just can't help but want to see what's coming next. In reality, not much gameplay has really happened up to this point. You may have crawled through some areas and pushed an object in order to reach a door handle, but it's been more segmented exploration than actual challenge. And considering we still have no idea what's really going on story-wise, this is where a lesser game would have definitely started to get boring. But don't worry, all of this build-up is totally worth it. And there are enemies and obstacles. Ah, see? Right on cue. Oh what? You don't think that's scary? You're right, it probably doesn't even do anything. Oh. No, yeah. No, it kills you. Yeah, you just want to avoid these guys, which is easy enough. Hey, what's that thing? Let's go find out. Now where am I? Let's see. Oh. Okay, that's a bit harder. This is your first real trial and error part of the game. On your first attempt, you may wonder what the hell you're supposed to do, but once you find out where the exit is, it's much easier. After your brush with your first real challenge in the game, you're given a platforming puzzle. It's pretty basic. When you use the crank, a light pours in revealing where you need to get to, and all that's required is a quick jump over this gap and a slide using the duck button. Oh, yeah, be careful you don't give yourself brain damage in the process though. Thankfully, after this, you're finally past the leeches. What's that scraping noise? Oh. Let's forget about that. We'll probably never see it again. So after this, you find yourself in what appears to be a nursery, if nurseries had electrified metal bars keeping children from leaving the playroom. You also come across another one of these little guys from earlier. As it turns out, they're called gnomes, and they're actually really friendly. They also like to be hugged, which counts towards another bonus challenge if you can manage to catch them. More interestingly, the gnomes can often lead you to secret rooms, which can reveal more clues to the plot. There sure are a lot of cages in this nursery. I mean, like, a lot of cages. It makes you wonder what's really going on around here. I mean, this place is creepy and all, but is anything even gonna happen? So far, nothing's oh shit! Did he see me? See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The game gives you all this time to take in each new area with very minor obstacles at first. Initially you feel tense and worried. Is something scary gonna happen? Is something gonna jump out at me? But as soon as you start to feel comfortable that that's not gonna happen, and you start progressing at a less cautious pace, bam! That's when they get you. And that's why the experience in this game is so significant. Speaking of the experience, I have to warn you that if you wish to experience the rest of the game on your own, then it's suggested that you stop this video right now and do so. I'm not going to go through every single aspect of the game, far from it, but there are some mild spoilers coming up as I continue the review. As you progress, your character has these moments where she starts starving for food. The first time this happens, you're lucky enough to have what appears to be an older child throw you some meat. As this continues happening throughout the game, however, these hunger attacks become more severe. And I have to praise the bone-chilling music that plays as the situation intensifies. It's really, really good. There's an amazing payoff with this recurring event, by the way, which I definitely won't spoil here. The first big enemy you face is the janitor, that giant long-armed fellow from earlier. While he's quick and his lanky arms allow him to reach you from great distances, your one saving grace is that he's blind, and he relies on his sensitive ears to catch you. That means you have to be careful about not stepping on creaky floors and sometimes purposely making noise as a distraction. If you accidentally make a sound while you're in a cramped place, then it leads to some really tense moments. All you can do is stay still and pray he doesn't find you. Moving ahead a little bit, I want to talk about another specific moment that I loved my first time playing. After dealing with the janitor, you make your way to an expansive kitchen area, and naturally, a grotesque chef who either thinks you're vermin or decides you might just be a good addition to one of his dishes. He isn't blind like the janitor, but he's a lot slower due to his obesity. Still, it's really nerve-wracking when you hear that squeal and see him running towards you. This leads up to one of my personal favorite revelations I had while playing this game. After making it past the kitchen and moving up to the chef's bedroom in search of the key, you feel like you're finally safe. But then as you enter his room, you notice that he's already sleeping in there. Wow, he's faster than he looks. Then the light comes on. See those portraits on the wall? That's right. 2 beds, 2 toilets. How did I not notice before? The nonsensical and nightmarish nature of the game that's been showcased so far totally threw me off, and I didn't even consider that there's a reason why there's 2 of everything. This is another great example of how the game gets you so distracted with this immersive world and sense of relief between obstacles that it can totally surprise you at any moment. Now I know I've done nothing but praise this game so far, but it isn't without flaws. For one, there are a couple of glitches here and there. Like for instance right here when I tried to pick up this roll of toilet paper and it started spazzing out and teleporting me all over the place. There's also this part where if you unlock this door, push it open, and then walk back inside, it will lock on you, making it unable for you to progress. Thankfully, you can always restart from your last checkpoint, which usually isn't too far back. This actually brings me to another critique I have. The game is completely based on an autosave feature where it creates frequent checkpoints each time you make progress. While I feel that the system works quite well overall, there are a few times where I feel like it's a little too generous. My biggest example is here near the ending of the kitchen segment. As you make your escape, you're tasked with climbing a tall plate of dishes that the chefs are in the middle of cleaning, before jumping onto a meat hook and hoping you can get away before they can manage to catch you. It's a very thrilling scene as it's the first time 2 big enemies are after you at the same time, and you know you're just moments away from leaving them behind for good or getting caught and starting all over again. During my first playthrough, I failed to let go of this meat hook and drop to safety in time, and I was caught by one of the chefs. But instead of having me redo the escape segment, it just started me on this dish pile, as if I had already dropped down successfully. This was a little disappointing to me, as I feel it broke up the tension of the big chase. My only other issue is that there are a few moments when the perspective of the camera can throw you off and cause you to die. Such as here with the piano, when it's hard to judge if you're lined up with it or not. Or more especially here when I try to go through this hole but I fall to my death. It even seemed to me like I'd made it through to the other side before falling and dying, but I'm not sure. I think I've said just about all I have to say about Little Nightmares. The visuals, atmospheres, sound, and even pieces of lore you get as you play through the game are all superb, leading to one of the most entertaining and unique gaming experiences I've ever had. The gaming and puzzles found throughout the game are also fun and well balanced for the most part, with minimal flaws overall. It isn't the longest game, taking me around 2.5 hours to beat during my first blind playthrough, but if you get sucked into the story as much as I have, then there's plenty of replay value and definitely more to discover. I even have my own theories. See these long hanging legs that we find early on in the game? What if instead of it just being some random person hanging, it's actually the janitor's legs? Think about it. He already has these super long arms which doesn't match his stubby legs at all. And if you look at his room, it's filled with gigantic furniture that's even too tall for him to reach. But he would be able to use it if his legs were just a bit longer. Maybe he lost them somehow. I'm not usually a DLC type of person, as I often like to view a game as a whole single piece of work, but there is a DLC chapter out there which is supposed to shed some light on the game's world, with more coming in the near future. And if there's one game that I'd be willing to try extra content for, then it'd probably be this one. While I love the vague yet compelling story that Little Nightmares tells in its main mode, I sincerely hope that it doesn't jump the shark with the DLC, and only continues to expand its universe in new and more interesting ways. Alright, I think I've rambled long enough. I want to end this on possibly my favorite visual in the entire game. Now this takes place during the beginning of the second to last chapter, so one more spoiler warning. As you make your way higher and higher, you finally reach a window of what appears to be the outside world, and an explanation to the swaying and rocking that seems to happen once in a while. Just look at that. Your tiny yellow figure ascending the side of this enormous ship, the water crashing beneath, the boat horn, the seagulls, the large intimidating figures all boarding the ship that is the world you've been experiencing so far, the way that they're blurred off in the background, yet marching in such a detailed way that it begins to feel more like a professionally animated film than just a video game. Finally, as these creatures begin to come into focus, it hits you. I just had to deal with 2 big enemies at once right now. Is this what I got to look forward to next? Oh man. So that was Little Nightmares. If you haven't realized by now, I'm in love with this game. I'm usually more of a retro gamer focused on playing challenging yet simple games from the 80s or 90s, but this game took me totally by surprise. It's not often that a modern game can make me this enthusiastic, so take my word for it. You don't want to sleep on this game. Well, that's it for today. See you next time.